Okay, so we have people already online. So,
Hi.
hi everyone, welcome to the broadcast. Hope you can hear both of us and see us loud and clear. Can we know where you were joining us from? That would be great. So, girls, you can do this. You can also share it on your personal Facebook. So I'm going to do the same. So to do that, you go to the actual broadcast on my Facebook page, and then you would share it on your Facebook, on your personal Facebook.
Excellent. Just doing that now, hence the extra lighting. Here we go.
So those you can do that. You can also share it on your personal Facebook. So I'm going
Yeah.
to do the same. So to do that, you go to the great, awesome. Okay, so I think we have people gradually coming in. So let me, hi everyone, let us know where you are joining us from and your name. Hi Sade, great. Sade, where are you joining us from? Captain. No, I'm very terrible with names. uh, I hope I get that. I hope I got that well. Where is Captain joining us from? Please tell us where you're joining us from.
Can't seem to see the comments, but I'm trusting they're coming in.
I can read them from my screen. So
Sure.
right now okay, Captain um, said hi goes in. So let me put that on the screen. You see
Hi.
that?
Hi, Captain Engin. Welcome.
Great. Oh, from Scotland. Great.
Oh, you're in Scotland now. Wow. Thanks
Oh,
for
we
tuning in.
got Femi from Australia. Isn't that
Hi.
awesome?
Wow. Talk about borderless.
This is
Love to
borderless
hear.
already. This is amazing. Oh, thank you, Femi, for joining us. We have Sade from Maryland. I'm going to shout it on the screen. Hi, Sade. Thank you so
Hi.
much for joining us. By the way, Sade, let me give a shout out to her. She's like a tech person in the DMV area. Did I get that right, Sade? I'm guessing. Okay, so what do we have again? Let's see.
I'm new to this platform. How can I see you?
Myself.
Yes.
Okay, so right now I have both of our screen displayed. I wonder why you're not. Okay, let's do it this way. Can you see both of us now?
No.
So you're just gonna have faith that I see you
Well, I can see I'm being broadcasted, but anywho. All right,
and
cool.
I can hear your voice loud and clear.
Awesome. That's the important part.
Oh, Shad is now a coach. Okay, the last conversation we had, um, talking about borderless. So she's gone from tech to the world of coaching. That's awesome.
Wow. Wow.
Guys, what we're trying to do is to try to get a few people online and then we're going to officially get started. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing shout out to people as they come in. So if you just join us, I'm going to ask that you, okay, you can see us both. Okay, great. So girls, and if you're having challenges with your faith, shout
No,
it just
no challenges with the faith, just technically.
Okay, great, great. We can see each other. They can see us great. Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome.
So, so what I'm trying to do is to just to get us before we get started, I just want to do a few shout outs as people join. So if you were just joining us, please type the location you are joining from. Type the location you're joining from. Awesome, awesome. Where is Aziz joining from? Oh, Aziz is joining from Chicago.
Hi, Chicago. Welcome,
Hi,
welcome.
Chicago. Welcome to the program. Welcome to the Facebook Live. Okay, so what we're going to do is this. So just let me give you an overview of what's going to happen. So my job is to welcome everyone and just do a little bit of introduction. I'm being interviewed by Gozin, and I hope Gozin takes it easy with me because she's also a lawyer.
Cross-examination is going to begin.
Yeah, so right now, I'm going to be on a hot seat very soon, but it's all for good. It's all about the power of stories. So let's do something before we get started. When someone asks you the question, what is your story? What is the first thing that comes to your mind? So FYI, if we can make this interactive, I'm going to ask that you invite your friends. If you can also share on your wall on Facebook, that would be fantastic. But let's just do a little play, just to gauge our perspective to telling your story. When someone asks you the question, what is your story? What comes to your mind? So once you chat in your comment, I'm going to highlight those comments, and then we're going to just go on from there. So right now, everything is going great. I can hear and see everyone loud and clear. So I just want to hear your perspective on when you hear story, or when someone asks you the question, what is your story? What comes to your mind? It doesn't have to be something like pretty long. It could be just pretty short. You think about anything. Once again, while those comments are coming in, I'm going to ask that you please share the screen, invite your friends, give us a lot of love and likes. Let's keep it interactive as much as possible. So who want to go first to tell us? Okay, Sade, let me put up what she said on the screen. By the way, Gozin, can you see the comment on the screen?
I can now.
Okay, great. Femi says your background, your upbringing. Let me put that up.
That's good. Yeah. Story tends to begin from the beginning.
Yes. Welcome, Yemi Dowu. Let us know where you're joining from. Thank you for joining us, by the way, Yemi. Appreciate that. Shade says your hero's journey from struggle to triumph. That is excellent.
Okay.
That is excellent. Thank you so much for that. Once again, everyone, right now we are asking the question. When someone asks you the question, what is your story? What comes to your mind? If you can chat your comment, I'm going to highlight it on the screen. That'll be fantastic. Thank you so much, Femi and Sade, for participating. What else do we have? Can we get one more before we go further? When someone asks you, okay, also from Chicago, thank you, Vanston, Illinois. Thank you, Yemi. So let's see if we can get one more comment. When someone asks you, what is your story, what comes to mind? So far, we heard your background, your upbringing. I'm going to highlight that again on the screen. We also had hero, I'm going to go ahead and add the word Shiro as well. Journey from,
Amen.
yes,
She
from
wrote
journey,
too.
yeah, from struggle to triumph. Yeah, I thought we'd balance it out.
Thank you,
Hero,
sir.
hero. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for that, for the contribution. So what we're going to do today is we're going to really try to explore this new paradigm to storytelling. And it's very on point, it's very expected. Oftentimes, when people ask us to tell our story, oftentimes we think about our upbringing. As someone said, where we grew up from, we think about the community in which we grew up from, where we were born, where we
Right.
grew up, where we were raised, where we went to school, when we had important defining moments of our lives. Those
Right.
indelible epic moments that really stands us and shape who we are.
Right.
That is what we think about when someone asks us a question, what is your story? And that is pretty foundational to start thinking about storytelling. What we want to do today is we want to elevate that concept. We want to amplify the idea of storytelling from a biographical perspective. So we
Right.
want to flip this process and look at storytelling in a totally different perspective. We want to look at it from a model that is future oriented, that is forward looking, as a
Right.
matter of fact, that is even aspirational.
Right.
So all about starting from the destination where we're going, not necessarily from where our journey originates. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk a little bit about my story, my journey. I'm also going to talk about how I got connected with Gozen, and I'm going to turn it over to her. She's going to tell us more about ourselves, and then she's going to put me on the hot seat of storytelling, asking me all this, hopefully not pointed questions.
We need some wisdom, sir. We need some wisdom. You need to help
Yes,
us
so
out.
yeah, I know you're going to bring those out. That is what you do very well. So talking about my story, my journey, I've always had, just like everyone else, you ask everyone, what do you think you were here to do? The average person say to help, to
Right.
serve, to make a difference in my community, in my country. I've always had those aspirations as well growing up. But I had this defining moment that really shaped who I am. She was shortly after the university. I was seeking a career path. If you follow me, I tell this story a lot of time. I was seeking a career path, and I just founded a not-for-profit organization and on campus, and it did pretty well. Shortly after graduation, I was at a crossroads. I was kind of considering what my career life path options are. Should I go the nonprofit path or should I go the for-profit path? About that time, I really took time off from pursuing anything professional or serious. I started doing some introspection, and I really started to look within myself. As I would say then, I was trying to find my voice.
Right.
I was in this state, I would say from hindsight now, a professional identity crisis, because I didn't know if what defines my mission on earth is to be a service professional or to be entrepreneurial. I just wanted to be sure that whatever I do is what I'm supposed to be doing. So my path crossed with a mentor, a life coach, and she gave me this opportunity, and she invited me for a very first coaching session. And she asked me the same question. So tell me about your story. So just like Sade and Assis had said, I told her about my trajectory leading to that moment. I told her my story till date. And I told her that I'm right now at a crossroads, and I'm seeking a career path. And I like to help people. And I also think that business really resonates with me. So she said something that was life-changing. She said, Gbenga, if you want to help people and if you want to make money while doing that, you are a social entrepreneur. Prior to that, I've never heard social entrepreneurship before Gozen. It was a brand new concept.
Right.
So what I did afterward was I really immersed myself in that concept, and something interesting happened, Gozen. What happened that 6 months after that conversation, the corporation of Microsoft was started to consider that field quite interesting. So they have this program called the Global Young Social Entrepreneurs Competition.
Wow.
I did apply for the program and I was successful. And it was a big deal. It's a big deal. Think about it, Gozen. I went from having no conceptualization to what this field is, and I was chosen as one of the 100 best in the world.
It had your name on. Social entrepreneur. There we go.
Yes. So for me, what happened was this opportunity. I have this individual, this coach or mentor figure come into my life and help crystallize what my professional identity was.
Right.
She gave me the articulation for my story.
Right.
The opportunity I've always been around, but because I now have the language that I am a social entrepreneur, and that fast tracked my trajectory into industry or thought leadership.
Right.
And from then I joined, United Nations. I came to America. I led a few bunch of social enterprises, and now I dedicated myself to helping people really tell their story and define their identity. And you really cannot tell your story without a very clear knowledge of your identity, whether that be gender, whether that be professional. At this point, I'm going to stick to the professional aspect of it. So when it comes to storytelling, I do travel across the country. I host this workshop called Tell Your Story, and three things resonate with people. Number one, is this yearning for clarity. Everyone is seeking some form of clarity. Why clarity? Clarity because, as I would say oftentimes, that the multi-talented are usually the most conflicted. Not because they lack opportunities, as a matter of fact, it's because they have way too many opportunities. And that brings them to decision or opportunity paradox. They don't even know what to do. The second thing that resonates with people, or the theme that came out, is articulation. So if you think about my story, there was this life-changing opportunity at Microsoft that had my name on it. But if I not had that conversation, I wouldn't have the articulation to be able to tell my story that this is me. Well, while I was filling out the business plan, it was aspirational. It thought this is going to happen, and sometimes, some days, sometimes going to happen, But just because I have the right language, that was life-changing. And number three is monetization. And what that simply means is expanding our sphere of income, expanding our sphere of impact, as well as expanding our sphere of influence. Whether we're doing that as a person of faith, as an entrepreneur, as a professional, as a nonprofit person, how do we make a difference within our sphere of influence? So that is the overview background. So how did I meet Gozen? So Gozen and I were at a conference in Atlanta, and she cast a very good spell with her breach itself. I've never seen both men and women in my life fall under a spell. Because she has this very electrifying personality and dominant, like you can't just overlook that. I personally have never seen, I'm telling you, men and women at this program was all around. She just formed our own community. It's almost as if she brought them with her where she was coming from. That was amazing. And I'm so glad. You said what?
I knew them all.
Yeah, I think Americans have this weakness for British people. and and that weakness was something very interesting. I thought that was very. So we were both speakers at the conference, and we've been in contact ever since. I'm so excited this opportunity happened. Having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Gozen to tell us about herself, and she's going to put me on the hot seat of questions.
Right. So a little bit more about how we met. So it was beginning of summer 2017, right?
Yeah.
So we were both invited to speak at this conference, and I didn't know much about the other speakers. I knew a few of them, but not all of them. And Gbenga was one of them. That just they all opened my eyes to a different area, and we all had our different key points that we were speaking on. But when I heard Gbenga speak about the story and how to articulate a story, your unique story, my life's never been the same again. I just want to put that out there.
Wow.
It's just the kind of revelation, and the Bible speaks of this too. It's the kind of the ooha moment where your eyes just open, you're just enlightened as to where you've been going wrong all these years, what you need to start doing right, and then just, as you said, permission to be you, like permission to just own your own story. And Borderless Voice, you'll need a copy of this. I just want to say that from the front. You'll need a copy of this. And this is where the questions are going to come from, Borderless Voice. So I've had the absolute privilege of reading this book.
Great.
Borderless Voice by Gbenga himself. And it's the power of telling your story and finding your identity. I know just in the ministries that God's given me that identity crisis is a real thing, isn't it? So what can someone do? Actually, let's start from the beginning. So your story.
Okay.
My understanding of a story is like, for example, the story of Jesus, born in Bethlehem, the wise men come to visit, the shepherds come to visit, they gave their gifts, and then the story began. He started growing, and then his ministry flourished, and then he died, right? That's his story. It starts from the beginning to the end. So you say something so transforming. Where does your story begin? Where did your story begin? Did it start when you were born?
Well, your story begins the moment you give yourself permission.
Wow.
And you take ownership of your identity, of who you are. So let me put that into concept and make it more practical. To really tell a compelling story, I tell people to ask themselves this question: who am I becoming?
Wow.
So before I became an author, I was doing life coaching. Before life coaching, I was a recruiter. Before I was doing recruiting, I was a nonprofit or social entrepreneur. Before that, I was a student. And there was this morphing of my professional identity. And there was this aspirational, there's this new frontier that I've always stretching and trying to, immerse myself or express myself in. And I think the moment that we give ourselves permission to really elevate and hone and embrace that journey and say that I'm not an author just because I've not written a book yet. My validates that I'm now an author. I've always been an author. So really, for me, when my coach told me that you are a social entrepreneur, I didn't even know what that word meant.
Right.
But my story started the moment when she gave me this invitation and say, this is who I see you to be as. And I embraced that. And that changed my trajectory. So it's that moment of me taking ownership of it and giving myself permission. So that is the point. That is the point that you tell your story. I don't want to say where you start from, you discount that. It's a very important aspect of telling your story. But a very point to tell a powerful story is the moment you decide to give yourself permission and take ownership of your journey.
Right. I heard a quote. I'm not sure who it's by. Maybe someone can put it in the comments. But the two most important days of your life are the day that you were born, and the second, the day that you realize why you were born.
Yep.
Right? Because you could be born into this world, but unless you truly realize why, you, uniquely you, with the gifts and talents that you have, with the look that you have, with the color skin that you have, with the hair type that you have, with the voice that you have, with the posture and stature that you have, albeit tall, small, whatever it be, you uniquely were created, as the word of God says, for a purpose, on purpose, with purpose. And that's what I hear. I'm just going to quote a little bit from your book. It says, this book is about finding your borderless voice. It shows how you transcend your limitations and make valuable contributions to the world. Wow. You are not a product of your environment. Wow. But of your own design, vision, and voice. It doesn't matter where you come from. Your story might be confined to a geographical location, but your voice doesn't need to be. How powerful is that? It can have an impact on the world. The environment that has shaped your story and worldview is your greatest asset and advantage. Mind blowing. So you're telling me, little me, from, well, anyone that's met me knows that I'm not that little. I'm quite tall, actually. But I, from London, can have a borderless voice just in my little town in London. Like, I'm not even from the major city of London, but from my little town in London, I can have a borderless voice. Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly. Yes. That is absolutely what I'm saying. That everyone's story has this universal impact and universal appeal if communicated in the right way. And oftentimes, particularly in my work, what I see is from a professional standpoint, I see myself as someone that serves thought leaders in transition or
Yes.
industry leaders in transition. They
Yes.
they have that within themselves, but the expression of it. So whether they're going from one industry to the other or moving from one country to the other, what I'm trying to say is oftentimes people really concentrate on intellectual borders, on cultural borders, on financial borders, on racial borders. I'm not discounting that those things do not exist. Yes, they do exist, but this concept of borderless voice is that once you really tap into your own voice,
Right.
which is your purpose, and once you type into that uniqueness that you have, that you will begin to see those boundaries and those borders really crumble, and you overcome those boundaries and you release your borderless voice. In any industry, so one of the stories in the book, it's a woman that is an impact investor. She used to work from a pharmaceutical company. Her name is Carrie Rich.
Right.
The pharmaceutical company is called Innova. The CEO happened to be our mentor, and she would talk about how she wanted to change the world. And this woman was around like 22. That she wanted to change the world when she has all these resources, she has this vision in the world. On her birthday, the CEO challenged and gave her $100. And so you've always talked about changing the world. Let's see what you can do with this $100. So she went back home and she took that as a challenge. Well, I don't think I'll be so inspired if I work with a billionaire and they gave me $100. Is that for lunch money or what is that?
Right.
So, but she took that challenge, goes in, and what she did was she wrote to 10 nonprofits around the world. She sent an email to Southeast Washington, D.C., where I am right now, and asked a local nonprofit, what can they do with $1,000? And they said they can increase literacy rate in the classroom. She wrote to an organization in India. They said they can put 50 women through small business. She wrote to an organization in Kenya that said they can support, I think about 20 farmers to take their produce to the market. And she was inspired by all these ideas. And all what she was trying to do goes in was raise $1,000. You know how you go into your Gmail and it compose and you type A and all the emails, addresses on the A comes up. And
Right.
she did that from A to Z, just asking for small donations to raise $1,000 so she can send to this nonprofit. She
Wow.
had met someone some weeks prior at a conference. They spoke for about 7 minutes. And she told that same person the same story, that I want to make the difference in the world if I have these resources. At the time that conversation and this story was morphing out, she didn't have a business plan. She didn't have a name for her business. She didn't have any corporation. She didn't have a website. She had nothing. All she had was an idea. And she
Wow.
communicated this idea. So those mass emails she sent out, this individual responded back and said, "This is so timely. I would like to make a contribution. How can we meet in person?" They met in person and goes and guess what? I don't know if you're ready to that point.
Yeah.
He gave her a check of $1 million. And she, yeah, and she almost passed out because she didn't come from wealth. She
Right.
ran back to the office and told a mentor, our CEO, "You have disrupted my life. I'm just minding my business. What I'm going to do with this." And then the CEO told her that, "Well, be careful what you ask for. You might just well get it."
Wow.
Guess what he did? At this point, you would have to go pursue your dream. He doubles the million to 2 million. And
How?
that organization today is called the Global Good Fund. It just started by telling a stranger that I have a dream of changing the world. So she didn't have the intellectual know-how. She didn't have the skill, the background. She was the least likely candidate to have such an organization. But because she started from this point of, this is what I'm supposed to do, and this is my authentic self, this is what resonates the most to me, whether she's in a 9 to 5, whether she's in a conference, manifesting. So that is a concept of borderless voice, that once you find your voice and once you find your truth and authentic self and commit yourself to always speaking that language, you overcome any barrier.
You have just said a mouthful and stuff. Like, wow. I love that story. And I've heard it many times, but I love it. And you go over it in the book as well in more detail. The moment you just take ownership of who you are, the moment you make a decision to just, like, as you said, I'm an international entrepreneur. I'm a social entrepreneur. That's me. And then you start owning it, is the moment that what you put in your book, there's a paradigm shift, right? A paradigm shift starts taking a place because you start walking with this confidence and boldness to just ask, what's the worst they can say? No. Move on to the next one. Ask. And it's that knowing that you know that this is in your heart, this is what you were destined to do, that I believe drove her and drives many others daily. But I love this whole paradigm shift, and you speak of it in the book, and how once you start stepping out, things just start aligning. She didn't ask for $1 million. She didn't, like, she was just going one by one small step at a time. I believe there's a quote that says, "A journey of 1,000 miles starts with one small step." And that's what you told me she did. She went through A to Z in her emails. And I bet the small contributions started coming a lot quicker than the $1 million one. But it's the thing of people need that endurance. They need to kind of stay on it. And this is also another one of your major teachings. Your tribe starts coming. Those that resonate with you start coming. I love that in the book. And I love how you prepare us in the book in terms of, you ask these questions, you provoke thought in us throughout the whole of this book. So I love how it's sectioned in 3 different sections. So you've got the identity, And then you've got the story, owning your story, telling your story. And then you've got the examples, you've got the branding side of it, and how to really equip us. So you're not just giving us these stories, you're not just giving us these wishy-washy kind of like, look, this is so good, this is what worked for me. No, 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 no. You're backing it up with real life examples that you've lived. I love that part. And you're provoking thought in us to think about what our story is, to really own our story. And I just want to say thank you. Thank
Oh,
you.
you're welcome.
It's
You're welcome.
amazing. Just like,
Oh, thank you too. Thank you.
but one thing you said there, and I know those that are connected to my ministry were so blessed by this, is own who you are.
Yeah.
As you know, I've got a ministry called Wife in the Waiting, all over Facebook, Instagram, and I am a wife mindset coach. So I teach women and men, but I primarily teach women the mindset of a wife. Those that desire marriage, those that don't even desire marriage, but just know that they are wives of Christ. So all of that is doing exactly what you're saying. It's owning who you are, owning who you were created to be, owning who you are destined to be, whether it looks like it or not, right? So how can we continue? Like, so for example, you speak about this paradigm shift and the thought-provoking questions, and what if someone just comes up to us and is like, you're not that, you're not an international entrepreneur, what do you mean? You're not an author. you say you're an author, you're not an author. What book have you published? Obviously you clearly are in all aspects of that. But say someone that's declaring, you know, I'm an author, I'm a wife, I'm an entrepreneur, but they haven't even got one business. What happens when that person comes and they're like trying to throw them off and be like, no, you're not? What happens then?
Well, so I do this exercise in my workshops, and I would ask a question. So I have this professional identity quadrants, and there are four of those. There's the skilled professional, there is the entrepreneur, there's the industry leader, and there's the thought leader. And I'll ask the question, I would say that if anyone in this room would self-identify as a thought leader, if they can show hands. And those, and I did this exercise across the country, including Wall Street. And I wasn't too shocked because I've seen this happen over and over. And I was a little bit. It was very interesting what the ratio was. In any room, rarely would I find about 5% self-identify as a thought leader. So I thought it was an opportunity for us to have a conversation about this. So I said, okay, for those of you who didn't identify as a thought leader, when you think about thought leader, what comes to your mind? And they said a thought leader has this years of experience, they are called thought leaders, they are this, they are that. I'm not that person. I don't have articles on industry journals. I'm not a in-house specialized like contributor on major national or international media platforms. I don't do keynotes at international conferences. I'm not a thought leader. And I drive it really home. I said, so tell me the examples of thought leaders that you have. Tell me what they have, the ones that you know, what they have that you don't have. It turns out that the people we really call thought leaders, most of the time we probably have more things that they do. But the difference is, think about the books you read. And you told us someone actually wrote this and called themselves an author. I'm not putting down anyone because I'm not in that category. But the idea is that when you look at it and you personalize it, you realize that it's all about you giving yourself permission. So in this particular program, so when I told them that you would have to give yourself permission, and this woman walked up to me, she must be in her 60s, approaching 70s. And
Mm-hmm.
she was quite an emotional conversation. She said, Benga, I've been in this organization for, I think she was approaching 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And no one ever told me that I can build my own brand, that I can identify as a thought leader. It was an emotional reaction for me because of my culture of respect, having that kind of conversation, that
Mm-hmm.
you are the only one that have made me to really examine how I
Mm-hmm.
see myself. So, in my own story as well, I'll never identify myself as a social entrepreneur. So
Right.
and this is the power of storytelling goes in. If you go for a job interview, if you go for a funding,
Mm.
more educated, who are more bilingual, multilingual, who has technological savvy than you are. They have been to more countries than you are, but there are
Mm-hmm.
certain unique experiences that has shaped who you are. And
Mm-hmm.
those things is so real. Think about your fingerprints. You are
Mm-hmm.
only the one that have such in your whole life. When I went around the world, the experience I had was confined to my university. I didn't think that was valid for me to tell myself to even vie to apply for this global business plan competition. So the reality is we already have it. So this thing that, oh, I don't see myself, you already. So what I'm saying is identity is simple. It's how you see yourself. Your personal brand is how I see you. I'm not even
Ah,
saying at this point, put up a website, put a shingle up that said you are this, you are that. I'm
mm-hmm.
saying you just give yourself permission in your paradigm, see yourself as morphing into this particular individual. Now, if you get the book, it's going to help you with the tools and the language and how to craft that messaging. But the
Mm-hmm.
very starting point is your paradigm has to be altered. So, really, the core of borderless voice is this: the greatest border of all is not financial, is not cultural, is not intellectual, is our own perception. Once we shift that, two things happen. Number one, we see ourselves differently and our vocabulary changes. And
Yeah.
once that happens, we activate this community around us. So I say it very simple. Once you tell your story the right way, the right
Mm-hmm.
people come to you. That community gets you. You don't have to prove anything to them. You share the same DNA together. You have shared interests and shared value system. It's a tribe, it's a community, it's your people, they get you, and that is where all your aspiration manifests. So someone challenges you that how dare you call yourself that person? I'm saying really that you number one, I would say don't put too much weight with what they say. Do you believe that? If you believe that, then let's work on you messaging that. The starting point is you seeing yourself that way. And once you message, the right people will come and in that community it's gonna happen.
Wow, that quote. I'm gonna do a post. I'm gonna do a memo of it. Once you tell your story the right way, the right people come to find you. They've got the same DNA was the word you use. That is so powerful. And I believe that's true as a wife. Like many singles, because singleness is frustrating. Um it can be frustrating at times if you're not doing it properly and you're not doing it in true surrender. But once you start changing your voice, once you start changing your story, once you start owning who God created you to be and that uniqueness inside you, like we heard with the example of the woman asking for donations, like we've heard with your story and my own. Once I started owning who God created me to be, owning the way I sound, I didn't used to like the way I sounded, owning the way I looked, I didn't used to like the way I looked, but owning it and truly living it, being authentic in that, the right people come to me. So I don't even need to go look for them. That is amazing. That is amazing. And I believe that's very much in line with the word of God. And this book helps in that. Um, you provoke thought a lot. You've got a lot of like questions. I would suggest getting a journal beside as you're going through the chapters and really assess where you're at, assess where you desire to be, and use the tools in the book to get there. I've just got one really quick question. I know we're short on time. So, there's so many coaches out there. There's so many people doing what we desire to do. And just in line with what you're sharing, the fact that we desire to want to do these things, these people are just even more evident in our eyes and we're seeing it. So there's so much competition. How can we deal with competition and the difficulties of competition in our stories?
Well, I think we can piggyback off this concept of once you tell your story the right way, the right people come to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we say that storytelling is a new marketing. A lot of people, the old school way of dealing with competition is you're trying to do marketing, you're trying to appeal to a demographic, you're trying to appeal to a market segment, you're trying to appeal to a niche, and you use all of this industry best practices to try to communicate and get your messaging across. So the average person goes for an interview. They say, like, I have years of experience, I've done this, I have this technological skills. Those are important. And when it comes to competition, you want to appeal to a tribe. Because again, this is your strongest community. They want you to succeed. Oftentimes, as entrepreneurs or leaders, we spend copious amount of time trying to communicate with people who don't understand us, and we try so hard to convince them. And after the convincing them, which we call conversion in marketing, and then it comes retention. We're fighting so hard to keep them. But there's certain people call it tribe. They want you to succeed.
Right.
Why spend your time communicating to the people around you? So let me give one of the stories in the book. One of the stories in the book is a woman by the name of Sandra. And she has a very fascinating title. She's the fashion psychologist.
Yes.
Sandra came from Boston to Washington, D.C. But just a little bit of background, our family came to the U.S. from a West African highland called Cape Verde. And they settled down in the Boston area. If you came in the doors in the 1800s, all they could do, their mechanism for survival was sewing. So think about all those little stores from people from certain part of the world. They might help you do adjustments and alteration with your dress. That was all they did. And they did that for generations. We both live in a multicultural community, and it is real. Some people might deal with stigma as an immigrant. So she was trying to distance herself from that. And what she did was she studied psychology. That is a way of going far away from that. But something so natural to this woman, because Cape Verde, think about it like Brazil or Cuba, arts expression style is so natural for them. So she has this natural, iconic sense of style. And everywhere she goes, people will tell her that, oh, your sense of style is just impeccable. But when they say that to her, they are triggering something that she didn't want to. And the more she was trying to distance herself from that, she was embracing. She was doing well professionally. She became a case officer working for the government. And at some point, there's something called purpose. Once it comes hard. So she got to a point that I can't stifle my voice any longer. For some reason, she came to Washington, D.C. and she hired me as a life coach. And I asked her the same question about her family ancestry. And it was an emotional, visceral reaction. She wouldn't continue the conversation. And she stopped the conversation. And the second day, she texted me the word, the fashion psychologist. I said, let's talk about this. And she said, finally, Gbenga, I've decided to marry my family identity with my professional expertise.
Wow.
So we created this mission statement, which is to help women embrace the power of their mind and their wardrobe to actualize their sense of expression, the outcomes they're seeking out of life. She has two signature programs. One is Holistic Fashionistas, the other one is Sweat the Runway. Our very first sets of events or program were all sold out.
Wow.
And she didn't have competition. She created her own space and she instantly became a thought leader. Now, I tell this story everywhere I go. I would like to consider myself that, what I do. And people tell me like, Gbenga, this is nothing personal. Your delivery is wonderful. But can you please connect me to that fashion psychologist woman? Because our story just resonates. I say that to the question about how do we deal with competition.
Right.
The competition is not even necessary once you start telling your story, because you activate a tribe around you. And that tribe, you share the same DNA. They're uniquely wired for your success.
Yes.
And not only are you becoming a part of this tribe, you also accelerate your industry leadership and your thought leadership. So when you talk about my story, when I understood my tribe is a community called social entrepreneur, I had this visibility for my brand. When Sandra understood that our space is fashion psychology, she instantly became a thought leader. When Carrie Rich understood that she is not just a pharmaceutical professional, that she is an investor, right? She automatically become a thought leader of that space. And now our organization does investing in social entrepreneurs all around the world. So tell your story and you activate your tribe. In that tribe is where all the miracle happens.
Wow. Wow. You said a few things in there in terms of mission statement.
Okay.
And that, but all the answers are in the book. How to write a mission statement, how to deal with setting up your brand and stuff. So this is what they need. How can they get one of these? How can they get a copy of these in their hand? Tell the people, they want to know.
Well, let me put that. So I think you can go to it's on Amazon.
Okay.
So if you go to Amazon, you'll be able to order the copy online from any part of the world. But also, if you go to my website, which is just gbenga.org, you can click on the link and it's going to take you to Amazon to get the book. So this is my gift for people online. Number one, whether you get the book or not, you should get the book. But in the interim, while getting the book, you want to listen to the introduction chapter. You can go to YouTube and type the book, Borderless Voice Book, and you can listen to the introduction chapter of the book. If you go to my website, gbenga.org, it takes you to Amazon. Please let me know you got the book. You can forward your receipts to borderlessvoicebook@gmail.com, and I can gift you a coaching session on storytelling. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yes. Let me put up email address.
Please. I want one.
Yeah.
Gbenga, as I've said before, you have ignited the storyteller in me.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. By the way, do we have any questions from the audience? Let me see. Any questions or comment? Chike said this is lovely. Thank you for that.
Hi, Pastor Chike. Hi.
Oh, great. I see Gozen's tribe here. That is amazing. I want to do a shout out to Tilda. She's one of my tribe and we're in the same tribe. Thank you so much, Tilda, for coming. Do we have any questions or any comment that you want us to talk about? But something that comes to mind goes, I want to ask you to talk about uh, two things, if you wouldn't mind. Number one, like in our prep for this call, you mentioned about um, that when you were living in America was when you had this paradigm shift of you when you got this real idea about how to tell the story. It
Right.
became real for you. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So I did an internship in America in 2009. So I applied for this internship year on year, and eventually I got it. And it was for 6 months to go to Arizona and just do an internship at a legal office defending people on death row, which was huge. The lawyer in me, the human rights lawyer in me, was ignited. And I remember my relationship that I was in at the time came to an end the day before. Um, I'm not entirely sure why it came to an end, but I'm glad it did, and it did come to an end. And I remember getting on that plane, ready to spend 6 months in America without knowing anyone. All I had had was email communication with one of the ladies in the office that said I can kindly stay at her house for a week in an outer house at the back of her house until I found my own place. So I knew no one in Arizona, not one person. So I remember thinking on the plane, I can come off this plane now and become exactly who I choose to be. I can dye my hair purple and be known as the crazy purple haired lady. Not that everyone purple hair is crazy, but I'm a bit crazy anyway, so it would have just been that way. But as you know, I'm not. I don't have outrageous coloured hair. I can choose to be the kindest person. I can choose to just speak fluently French, and I don't speak fluently French. So I can choose to be exactly who I wanted to be and present myself as such to these people, because no one knew me, no one knew my past. I can tell them stories about how my past was, and they wouldn't know any different. So I believe that's the paradigm shift that took place. The most hardworking, the most polite person that I could be, and God found me there.
Wow, that's
Can you hear me?
wow. Yeah. I said that is amazing. And even Solomon King said that is amazing. This idea that you can become whoever you choose to become on that plane. And that's
Hi. All right, the voice is gone
oh, the voice is
from
gone.
my end.
I can hear you.
Gbenga, are you there?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, so while we wait for the voice, by the way, I want to say shout out to Theodore said it's a powerful book.
Right.
And oh, can you hear me now, Gozen? Oh, the voice is. I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, so I think it's a little bit of a delay.
All right, so I'm gonna close. I know I can hear you later.
Okay. I want to say shout out to Theodore said it's a powerful book. So yeah, I want to say shout out to Theodore. He said it's a powerful book. Thank you. Solomon said this is amazing. This is great. Um, okay, great.
I'm back. I can hear you now.
Oh, great. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Apologies.
I was just putting up the comments from Solomon and Tilda, but I was just echoing what you said, that you were on the plane
Mhm.
and you decided that on this plane going to America,
Mhm.
I can become whoever I choose to become.
Right.
And I think that is an empowerment.
Mhm.
That is an empowerment. So storytelling is now messaging that. So back to your question, how do you tell your story? That point on that plane, it's a defining moment.
Right.
So, and talking about defining moment, one of the things I wanted to leave with this audience is this. I want you all to, after this call, if you can, I want you to track the defining moments of your story. So Dawson talked about she was on this plane coming to America, and she decided that she can become who she decided to become. In the book, I talked about my own coming to America story as well.
Yeah.
And I had this defining moment that happened at the Atlanta airport. So usually if you come from overseas to another country, your options, they say, are limited. You can either be an immigrant, you can be a visitor. But at that moment was when I defined my identity as an international entrepreneur. I talked about stories on this call, people, what is Kerry Rich, that when a mentor or CEO gave her $100 to go change the world, that was a defining moment.
Right.
Or whether it was Sandra who decided that she was going to come to DC, and she has given herself permission to marry her family identity and her professional expertise. So what I want you all to do is this. I really want you to, if there's one thing you take away from this call tonight, I really want you to take inventory of the defining moments of your story. So these are the moments you can say, who I am today is shaped because of this particular incident that happened, or because of this particular experience. It could be a conversation with a mentor. It could be getting your first dream job. It could be going to a new country. And sometimes it could be negative. It could be tragic. It could be a loss of a loved ones. It could be getting fired from your dream job. It could be a loss of a business. Whatever that is, you need to take inventory of that. And the most powerful story you can ever tell is when the premise of your story is on those defining moments. One of the wonderful organizations we all know around the world is called Susan G. Komen for the Cure of Cancer. And they do close to the north of $3 billion in revenue. The story wasn't positive. It was a loss of a loved one. That a loved one was Nancy Jean Brinker promised a dying sister that she would do everything within her power to end breast cancer. All she had was $200. And today it's over $2 billion in revenues.
Wow.
So I would think those defining moments are gifts, because most of the time you don't have control over those defining moments.
Right.
The book tells you how to change the narrative, because oftentimes we stop at just recognizing it and say, I'm a product of my environment. I was born this way. My people always do this. We say all these things. Well, I think it's a starting point. You can change that narrative, but that experience is a gift. We all need to take inventory of the defining moments of our lives, of our story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't recommend this enough. I don't do many of these. I get sent books, I get sent gifts, but I had to come and just ask you some more questions and dive into this. This has been a huge blessing in my life. I just want to thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this conversation. Well, I think we're about to wrap up the call. Is it okay I say one more thing goes in before we close out?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I want to talk about my coaching program for anyone interested in story coaching. I do have a story coaching intensive program. I see a few people in the program, part of the program. Asa Solomon has been a part of the program before. So really what the story coaching intensive is all about, it is not a training program on how to write a fiction book or story. No. It is using your own life story as the blueprint to take your life, professional career, and business to the next level.
Wow.
It is how to use your story as a core business strategy for personal branding. So we talk about monetization, your personal brand. It is how to message that. So it's a 5 week long program.
Mm-hmm.
And what you have, it's a community of leaders who come together. And pretty much what we do is that we really take our story and we elevate our story. And we use that story, incorporate it into our non-for-profit organization, our speaking career or service business, our for-profit organization. The very first day is we take a panoramic view, a 360 panoramic view of your personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that we really change this paradigm that we are not what we do. What we do is an expression of who we are. You probably heard the saying before, do not walk in your business, walk on your business.
Right.
So what we established at day one is you are the business. Whatever your career is, as an author, as a speaker, as a coach, those are products and services of the business. You are the business. So take a 360 panoramic view. Well, the second one is we look at thought leadership and industry leadership. Whatever your field is, how do you build your launch your personal brand and monetize it?
Right.
Day number 3 is we look at the business of storytelling. Day number 4, it gets very interesting. We look at monetization aspects of your brand. It's all about financials and numbers at that point forward. You literally are given a challenge to go out and make money. And all kinds of deals happen in that day. Very exciting. And day number 5, we look at personal brand distribution. How do you take your story, your products, your brand? How do you distribute it among the tribes that we're talking about? Primarily B2C, business to business, and B2C, business to consumers, end users. You can use online media, you can use offline media. If you're interested in this program, I just want to leave the link for you to read more about it. If you would go to gbenga.org, give me 1 second, gbenga.org / go events, and you can read about is the story coaching intensive. It's going to happen in January. It starts January 2nd to February 4th of 2019. I'm going to be talking more about that. Well, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to leave it to Gozen to close us out.
Thank you so much.
Oh no, we have a question. Do we still have time for that, Gozen, or no? Whatever you say.
Okay, quickly, what is it?
Kindly speak on how to maintain the self-story in the face of a challenge.
We touched on that.
Yeah, I think we answered that question. We answered that question instead of time. So this video is going to be available for replay, and you'll be able to listen to that. But the bottom line is the greatest challenge is your self-perception and your paradigm. Once you change that, eventually you would overcome whatever challenge that is. And the messaging of that is how you tell your story.
And I find it's those challenges that actually prune us. It's those challenges that strengthen us for what is ahead. So if we can't overcome those smaller challenges, which may be big to us now, we're not going to be able to face the larger challenges that are to come, right? So it's all part of the story. It's all part of the becoming.
Yes.
And I consider them as blessings. But yeah, awesome.
There's a chapter in the book called Moments, and it starts with the phrase that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste because life-changing opportunities always masquerade as challenges. You should get that.
Yes. Get the book. Trust me.
Awesome.
Through the challenges, it will equip you. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you for being such a blessing in my life. Thank you for being a blessing and actually putting this down in a book. I know that's not easy.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you everyone for coming. I'll be getting the replay to everyone very shortly. Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Thanks.
Bye.